And the question is, what happens when you get ghosted and why it exactly happens? So, getting ghosted, for any of you who don't know, is when you've gone on a date or you've talked to somebody and all of a sudden they're not contacting you, they're ignoring your texts, ignoring your phone calls, basically just leaving and not giving you any explanation. This does happen a lot. I see it happen a lot with online dating, especially. Um, and you may be frustrated when this happens, and you may not understand why it happens. But let's go over some of the things why it happens. If Let's look at attraction, right? If somebody really likes you and they find you're an amazing person, they're probably not going to ghost you. So when they ghost you, say you have a date, right? And you have a good conversation, everything feels good, and you're like, oh, this was a great date. They say, okay, I'm gonna meet you. We'll continue this another time. We'll have another date and everything. And you're like, oh, this is great. And all of a sudden, nothing, right? So what you have to understand is that something turned this person off. Something you said, something you did turned the person off. And you're like, well, it's my mistake. I did something wrong. I have to try to fix it. Why? Because it's not actually your issue, it's their issue, right? Because in order for them to just, like, you say something, right, that turns them off. Instead of confronting it and saying, oh, why would you say that? Or tell me more about this issue. Like, say you had something in your past that you talked about. Instead of having you elaborate on it, they don't want the conflict. So they're afraid of, like, asking you to elaborate on that and try and getting that conflict from you. So, like, okay, they may decide right then and there, I am never talking to this person again. But they're so afraid of conflict that they'll be like, oh, yeah, yeah, everything's good. And yeah, oh, yeah, we'll go on another date, next week or something like that. Because they know they can ghost you. They know you know minimal about them. Especially this happens when, it especially happens when in the beginning and when you don't know them too well and you don't have any friends in common or anything like that. That's when they'll usually ghost you because they know they get away with it. They know they could just stop texting you, stop calling you, stop using the app or whatever, and you can't do anything about it because that's their safety, right? They can just say, okay, I don't need to talk to this person anymore, and there's no consequence of it happening. And people are like, well, I want to know what happened. I want to know this. I want to know that. I want to know what's going on. But we already know what's going on. Something happened that person didn't like, and he can't confront it. Do you really want him to call you and text you and say, okay, I don't like this about you? I don't like that about you? I mean, you've already seen what this person's capable of and the kind of person they are. So this person may be someone who, if anything arises in the relationship, he might just stop talking to you, or he could do this further down the line. So I always say, isn't it better that you find out in the beginning that somebody's in this position or somebody's like this? I'd rather find that out in the beginning than finding it out later on down the line when you've had so much more invested in this person. You just don't want to invest that in somebody who's going to be like, okay, I have nothing for you anymore. Or that I'm just going to shut down and I'm not going to communicate with you. And you kind of see the type of person that would do this. Someone who is very vocal and who isn't afraid of conversation, they're not going to do this. They're going to ask you right away, oh, why'd you say that? Or why'd you do this? Or why'd you do that? And, they're going to confront you about it. But the people who ghost you, they don't want to confront you. They're afraid. They don't want to anger you. They don't want to be bothered with it. So they will ghost you. And it's a horrible feeling to be ghosted. And I understand that nobody wants to be ghosted, but it happens. And the best thing you can do for yourself is just to say, okay, thank you. Thank you for just getting on with your life and not bringing me into this bad communication type of relationship. And also, people who are ghosted could be the ghostees as well. And something to avoid you being a ghoster is to confront it. Sometimes people may say something that doesn't align with you, but if you have them elaborate on it, if you ask them about it more, you may realize that it's not the big deal that you thought it was. So that's a good thing to avoid ghosting somebody, is to, you have a relationship, or you're talking to somebody, or texting somebody, or you go out on a date with somebody, confront them about it. Because we build up this fear in our head, and we have this false thing in our head that says, okay, if I confront them about it, it's gonna anger them, or they're gonna get mad at me, or they're gonna snap at me. Most likely that's not gonna happen. They're just gonna be like, oh well, this is what happened, and this is the reason why I did this, and this is the reason. And you're like, oh okay. And then you understand it more, and you're like, you know what, that's not such a bad thing as I thought it was. But you're judging it in the beginning. You're saying, oh, that's a horrible thing. I can't believe he said that. Or, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. And you might find out that it's not such a horrible thing. And that maybe you were capable of doing something like that as well. And maybe you heard it wrong, or maybe it was, you misunderstood it. So it's best to just put yourself out there and say, you know what, I'm going to ask questions. And that's always good on a date, is to be curious. Or when you're talking to anybody in life, be curious. Be interested in them. Don't just ask a question, get a simple answer, and just leave it like that. Ask them more about it. Oh, really? You did this? Well, why did you do that? Or if they talk about their job, and you're like, oh, that sounds like a weird career. Ask them, why did you get involved in that? What was this a goal that you were striving for? How did you decide to get into that kind of career? And it's good to ask open-ended questions when you're dating, instead of those closed-ended questions like, what do you do for a living? That's a good question to ask. But then you say, okay, why did you get into that? Why did you want to do that? Why was that your goal? Okay, what kind of goals do you have for the future? Just don't be like, oh, okay, what do you do for a living? How did you get into that environment? What do you see yourself doing in 20 years? Things like that. Always ask open-ended questions that require an explanation. And if you don't get the explanation, ask more. People love to talk about themselves. Most people will be so happy to explain that to you, and so refreshed that you ask that kind of a question. So the point is, guys, you get ghosted, I mean, just don't worry about it. Just say, okay, there's all these other people out there for me, and he's just weeding himself out. I'm not going to chase after this person. Why am I going to chase after somebody who's obviously not interested in me? Just be like, okay, that's it. They have this, I listened to this radio station in New York. It's called 95.5 PLJ. And they have an episode, they have a segment where they call, what is it called? I forget the name of it, but it's like something like, you were ghosted, right? And they have someone call and say, I went on this date and I haven't called, I haven't heard from them, I've texted and called them, I can't get a response. So the radio station will actually call them and have them on the air while the other person's listening and say, you had this date, we want to set you up, somebody has a crush on you, and, we want to set you up on a second date. And then they say who it is, and then the person's usually like, oh yeah, I don't have any interest in them. I'm like, well, we heard it was such a great date, what happened? And they'll say, oh, I didn't like him for this, I didn't like him for this. And then the other person will eventually chime in and they're like, well, this is how I am, why would you think that? Why would, and they usually end up never going on a second date. I've only heard it once since I've been listening to it. And I haven't heard every episode of it, obviously, but only one time, and I've heard a lot of the episodes. I used to listen to that radio station in the morning. Now I listen to books on tape, so I don't really have time to listen to that radio station. It's called Blown Off, that's the name of it. And it's just like, it kind of makes the person feel worse, I think, at the end. Like, oh, this was something that you thought about me. But don't look at what people think about you, Even if they ghosted you for a reason, they said, okay, you did this, you did that, who cares? That's their opinion of you. They say, I don't like this, I don't like how you said this, I don't like how you said that. That's their opinion of you. Just walk away. There's so many other people out there, so many people who will express themselves, who will love most things about you, and who will confront you when there's something that they misconstrue or they misunderstand. So don't worry about people ghosting you. It's going to happen in this day and age. It's more socially acceptable this day and age. Back in the day, in the 1950s or something like that, you don't really see people ghosting because you met people through all your friends and your family and everything, so they wouldn't just ghost you because they'd be like, okay, I'm going to get in trouble with her aunt if I just stop talking to this person. I have to give them an explanation. But with the advent of computers and social media and everything, and the dating sites especially, it's so easy to ghost people. You don't know anything about this person. Well, you have a cell phone number, maybe, right? And that's pretty much it. And you met them once. You know maybe what borough they live in or what town they live in if they tell you the truth, right? But you don't know much about that person. So it's very easy for them to just say, I don't want to see this person anymore. And I'm not going to give them an explanation. I'm just going to ignore them. And you're really not going to get a response out. Once you ignore them, once they ignore you for a long time, you're not going to get in touch with them. You can call them from a different number or try to do all those things, but you're just going to get something negative from them. So I say with ghosting, just move on, accept that it happened, accept that it's going to happen, and try not to be the ghoster. Try to confront things if someone says something that you may not like or you may not agree with or you may find confusing. Just confront that person, not angrily or anything, but ask them, why is that like that? Why do you think that? What brings you to there? And they might elaborate on it more, and you may actually understand it and say, well, that's actually not a bad thing that I thought it was in the beginning. So that's my advice for you today, guys, on ghosting. And if you'd like to get some more advice, you can keep watching my videos. Please subscribe and like my videos, and definitely leave some comments on the bottom, and I will try to answer those comments. And if you want to send me an email, my email is TheRelationshipGal@gmail.com if you'd like to get some personal questions answered. I could also make a video of your emails. Just let me know when you send out the emails if you want me to make a video on it. I'm going to be trying to make a video every single day. So I really want to get everything out of there, okay? And you can also give me some suggestions on what you'd like some videos to be made about. So again, if you'd like to support my cause as well, you can donate as well to my PayPal. I will have it in the description at the bottom. And everybody have a wonderful day. Thanks.